Welcome to the CEO Shift with your host, Shondell Spader, owner and CEO of Spader Group. In this series, you'll hear fast, focused conversations with business leaders and experts who've made the real shifts needed to scale past the plateau. Each episode delivers CEO-level insight in 15 minutes or less, because real growth doesn't need more noise, just better decisions.
The CEO Shift. I'm extremely excited to be interviewing and talking with Erin Duffy today from Inspiration Squared. She's an executive stage presence and career transformation coach with over 30 years of experience in creative agency leadership and the performing arts. Erin specializes in empowering in business leaders and entrepreneurs to shine authentically in the spotlight, whether on stage, in meetings, or during public engagements. Through her unique coaching approach, Erin breaks down the elements of charisma, personal brand, and stage confidence, guiding her clients to connect with their true selves and project their best selves outwardly. Her clients learn to harness the power of personal storytelling, which not only enhances their executive presence, but also fosters deeper connections with their audiences. Erin's transformative coaching programs enable individuals to elevate their stage presence, boost their confidence, and create a lasting impact. Erin, thank you for being here. Welcome, and I'm really excited to dive in today.
Yes, thank you, Shondell. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Of course, of course. We like to kick these off by talking about the zone of genius, right? Everybody has their special and unique zones of genius. And I want to know from you, what do you consider to be your zone of genius? And what do we want to be focused on today for our conversation?
Well, my zone of genius is definitely helping those business leaders and business professionals and business owners, entrepreneurs to really own their unique and authentic stage presence so that they can own every room they walk into. Because for me, Shondell, the stage is every room you walk into. It's not just getting up in front of 500 people. It's literally these one-on-ones or team meetings, board meetings, investor conversations, all the way your authentic self to that room. And are you comfortable and confident in doing that? And that is my zone of genius.
I love your zone of genius. So, in working together, of course, you and I have done things, right? Where I think by the time you and I started working together, sort of comfortable. And just, I know the things that you've done, the way that you frame it, you take this thing that's super scary, right? Oh, I gotta get up in front of people and I gotta show up and share things that I know, terrifying.
Right.
But it's really no different than this conversation. And that was one of the things I think that you helped me really realize is you and I can sit here, have this conversation semi-privately. Of course, we're recording, right? But we can have this conversation privately, but I can also have the same conversation with a room of 50 or 100 or 200 or whatever that might be, and still work towards creating a similar impact. One-on-one will always be different, but I love how you reframe it into, I don't know, maybe the words aren't right, but that conversational piece, right? So, being able to stand up with more confidence is huge. And I'm a beneficiary of your work. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Shondell. And, you hit it on the nose. I think it's, as we rise up in leadership and we start to step into that sort of leadership position where you're not just affecting yourself, but you're affecting a lot of other people. It's imperative that you are really comfortable and confident in who you are and understand who you are and bring that authentic presence to the room. Because here's the thing, every audience knows when we're faking it. And all of us probably have examples of watching somebody present or somebody be on stage, and you can tell when they're not fully present. There might almost be this invisible wall between us and them. And we can tell as an audience member. And what happens to an audience when we do that? We as leaders, if we really are not comfortable and present up there and bringing our authentic self, And that means you being your vulnerable self,
Yeah.
your honest self, your real self. When we have that wall, what happens to the audience is they start to check out. They start to just sort of like sit back or kind of, okay, they're listening and nodding, but they're not really, really present. And that is up to us as leaders to make sure that we are pulling our audience towards us. And the number one way of doing that is for you to be very comfortable in who you are and what you bring to the table. Because as I tell my clients, when you show up 100% your authentic self, you have no competition. And when we can own that, and you are comfortable and confident in that, the difference you make when you walk out on that stage, and again, it's every room you walk into, the difference you make is that not only do you feel comfortable and confident, but you suddenly make a difference in that audience. They're leaning in towards you. And here's the other thing as leaders, and I know, Shondell, I've talked about this many times before. As a leader, you also kind of want to be the mentor of tomorrow's leaders. Well, when you're up there and you are showing up and you're being present and real, and you're watching those people lean in, those young leaders, those up and coming rising leaders are learning from you. You're teaching them. This is how you affect people. This is how you pull people in towards you. This is how you inspire your teams. And it's really up to you as a leader. So when we fake it, people know it. And when you don't fake it and you're real, people know it. And the difference is they lean in and they want to be like you.
What a great, I mean, all of those things, right? Like it's not just about get up there, share your message so that, like for me, right, I jump up there and I want to share about having confidence in your numbers and your financials, knowing what to do with it, moving those things forward. But there's so much additional benefit and support that happens by doing exactly what you just said, right? Like show up, be there. It shows others how to lead. It inspires others. And nothing to do with my topic even, right? Like which I think is so great. They're likely hearing it, they're absorbing it, they're witnessing it, and they're aspiring to do things maybe differently for themselves because I think when we can see someone else standing up there and doing it, it becomes believable for ourselves.
Absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a great mind shift for speakers in general, or anybody really, like you said, whether it's on stage or in the room, in the sales pitch, in the, in any of those conversations.
Yeah, all of that. And, here's the thing. I mean, everybody who's listening to this and you and I have through our careers, we have examples of that. You can think back at the leader or the speaker that inspired you. And then the ones where you're like, oh, they're faking it. And sometimes, here's the thing, sometimes you can tell even the ones who look rah, and they're running all over stage, they're rah. Sometimes you can tell it's not authentic. They're putting on, you can tell that's not authentic. And my whole thing is, I'm not telling people, get up on that stage and be rah. That is not it. Unless that's who you are authentically. And we know the ones who are, and it's like, you just can't get enough of them. But this is when I tell my leaders and my C-suite executives that it's like, you need to find who you are and you need to own that. And let me tell you, when you do own it and you are comfortable and confident, it is so incredibly powerful. Not just to yourself, but to everybody in the audience. But for you, when you walk up on that stage, you're no longer comparing yourselves to others. You're no longer saying, I need to be more like that person, or afraid that you can never be as good as that person. When you start to dispel that and realize, no, that is not important. You turn it on the inside and you start to figure out, who am I as that leader? What's my voice? And owning that voice, it makes such a difference for you as a leader. But then again, it makes such a difference for your team or for whoever is in that audience.
Yeah, no, all of those are such great and excellent points. If I ever show up on stage and rah, I'm faking it. And I don't know why. Like I don't dislike when others do it. I love witnessing it. And I just, it's just not my thing, right? Like I'm never going to lead that. I might participate a little bit from the back row, but I am not like, I don't know. It's just not my thing. Weird. Maybe that's why I do accounting.
Yeah, but that's the beauty though. But when you're on stage, people listen to you because you really do own your voice and you really own who you are. And that's what attracts people to you. You
Well,
know how
thank
to bring
you.
story into, your opportunities to speak. You know how to connect to the audience in Shondell's way. And that is why people love listening to you, because they know they're getting you. There's nobody else like you out there, and you're showing up like you.
Aw, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. All right. So if there were a shift that you believe CEOs need to make, like whether it's to grow their business, lead more effectively, you know, make changes, make a difference, like what do you feel like that? I mean, I'm sure there's 100 shifts, right? But like, what's that one shift that really just popped into your mind?
I think, you're right. There are so many. But I think that there's one shift I think leaders, CEOs really need to know when you are presenting, when you are getting up in front of your team, in front of a large audience, whatever it is. I know we've talked about bringing your authentic self to that stage. One of the ways to do that is realize that when you're speaking, bring story into everything you do. A lot of times when we're leaders in a company, they want to know, what are the facts? What's the data? What's the details? What's a success? But when we just are data driven and we just put a bunch of charts up there and just say, this is what happened this year, this is how things happen, whatever. What happens is people will write down the data, but what they're not going to do is they're not going to remember it. Yeah. They remember story. And if you can take a story and marry that with your data, not only do you pull the audience in, but they remember because they're moved by the emotion of that story. So I always tell any one of my leaders, especially my clients who are leading companies, you got to have your arsenal of stories. You got to work on those stories and use story to drive the point home, because that is what moves people. That is what takes people from A to B. You have a challenge coming up, your company is under a major challenge, and you want to pull the troops together and say, we're rolling our sleeves and doing this together. If you use story to point out that situation and how we're going to do this together, they're going to be with you on that. They'll understand the data, but what pulls the heartstrings is the story. So I always tell my leaders, get comfortable using story to drive home your points. You make such a difference. Plus, it makes you incredibly memorable. You leave the room, they still remember you. They still remember the message. They are moved by the message, whatever it is, because you put a part of yourself in those numbers, in that data. And yes, story also allows people to see a little bit of you, a little bit more of you, and it pulls people towards you. So if you can start doing that, man, it will make a huge difference.
Yeah, I have a little off the script question here for you, but I know you're going to be okay. Um, does that story always have to be about us personally, or can that story be about how we've helped others, how, something we've witnessed and been a part of? Like, how far removed can this story be and still be impactful?
All of that. I love that you asked that question.
Okay.
I love that you asked that question. It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically it doesn't have to be about the company. Anything that's going to move the point. And here's the interesting thing. This is why I always, when I work with a lot of my clients, we tap into stories throughout their entire life. Because you'd be amazed at some of the lessons we all learned when we were in grade school.
Right.
and how people can relate to them and how you can use them to drive a point home. And that's the beauty of what I call creating your personal story arsenal. Anytime you think of a story, write it down. And literally, I'm not telling you, you don't necessarily have to write the story immediately, but if you think of a story, let's say you're out for a run, okay, or you're driving in traffic and you're like, oh my God, I remember when this happened when I was in high school, and this is so similar what's going on right now with my board. Write it down. Just get it down and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever an arsenal would look like for you, and then start to flesh that story out and then start to work that story. Don't lose your stories. Capture them, because you will be amazed how often you will tap into them when you know you have them. It's the beauty of creating a story arsenal. Allows you to tap into those stories because you already have them. You know them. And that's the thing. As soon as you think of one, write it down. Just write it down. Don't lose them, because everybody can relate to story. And here's the interesting about story. When you use a story, and let's say we have one, our Shondell from high school, okay?
Right.
You are using it to make a point for your business or for your team or what have you. What's fascinating about, and as you're telling this story, the more color, texture, detail you can provide in that story, what's happening is everybody's listening and you're pulling them in. Other fascinating thing happens. So many people in that audience will be like, wow, I think they're talking to me. That happened to me. I remember that. And suddenly they're on their journey with you.
Yep.
So you've made a deep emotional connection with the people in the audience, and now they're on this with you. So that's the power of story. So yeah, you can use any kind of story you want as long as it works. And I always tell my clients, it's like, there's never a bad story. There's never a wrong story. You don't edit yourself. Let it just flow. And this is when you're developing your stories and you're building your arsenal. There's no wrong story. It's there for a reason. It popped up in your head for a reason. Write it down. Figure it out. You'd be amazed.
I love the idea of write it down and just have them, right? Like that, that's something that, again, when we've done our work together, like I have a couple of stories, but I'm now remembering I didn't continue that practice, which is really, really powerful. So I'm excited to continue my practice now of like, oh yeah, this story, and keeping that, because I've got over 25 years of experience just in the business world, right? Like
absolutely,
I've got plenty of stories, good ones that didn't turn out so well, things that I've seen that can be helpful. So
absolutely,
I look forward to writing a few more stories in there.
I know. I was going to say everybody should, and there's all different story types that we all have. And when you start to capture because like you just said, you made a good point. Some of our greatest stories are the challenges we had in business, the failures we had in business, because we all learned from them. And it's like, what was the lesson? But what was the story?
Right.
Because then people are like, oh God, I know what that's like. So suddenly you've made this deep connection with the audience, but they're also tapping into their own. And then also, here's the thing, as a leader, when you're able to tell a story of a failure or a challenge, you're showing vulnerability. You're showing that you're human. You've been there. You're telling them, I didn't just start out as a CEO. I know what it's like to be in the trenches. I know what it's like to try something, it failed. And when your team sees that, they start to see you at a whole different level. You're human, you're real. And it's like, you're telling them it's okay to fail, because look what I learned from those failures and look where I am today. It's like there's so many rich stories that all of us as leaders have that we can use as a teaching tool to 100%. Our team, to whomever. And it's so powerful.
Erin, we could do this for days.
We could.
and I would love to. I always learn so much when I talk with you, and I get re-inspired every time, which obviously inspiration squared, like it makes sense why you're named the way you are, all the things. So please tell everybody how they can be in touch with you and what the best way would be to connect with you should they want more information and dive in.
Would love it. One of the best ways to connect with me is definitely on LinkedIn. I have a big presence on LinkedIn. I love to have conversations with people. So, LinkedIn with me there. I do every week. I do a tip, an executive stage presence tip every Tuesday. That drops every Tuesday. Plus, I do have a newsletter that's associated with as well. And then you can always find me over at my website, inspirationsquared.com, and squared is SQRD.com. And here's the thing, if the story piece interests people, I have the five steps to telling great stories. And you can find, in fact, I can send that link to you, Shondell, if you want to put it as part of this, because we did talk a lot about story, and people say, well, Erin, how do I start an arsenal? Download this thing. It kind of gives you the steps in telling great and powerful stories. So I would love to just offer that to everybody. And that'd be fun.
I would love that. Thank you. Yes, please do send that over. Again, Erin, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you joined us today, and I'm excited for this to drop so people can hear about story and how to just show up more authentically. I think that's something that everyone struggles with. Even the most confident folks, I think, struggle with it from time to time. And I think it's always just great reminders and a great practice. So I appreciate your smarts, and you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shondell. This is wonderful. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the CEO Shift. Ready to take your next step as a strategic CEO? Download our free 4-step CEO decision guide, the exact framework business leaders use to stop spinning their wheels and start scaling with clarity. Grab your copy at spadergroup.com/CEO-guide and start making decisions like a CEO today.